time I do, it makes me laugh.
Look at this photograph. Every time I do, it makes me laugh, like right now. So this is a picture of me and my brother, and it holds meaning for me, but the meaning is really, I know where the meaning comes from. The costumes were designed by my dad, and it was really clever, really creative. It's trick-or-treating. You put the candy in the bread basket, and it's something that I always stop on, but I know exactly why. Whereas there's other photographs, like this is a picture of my brother, and we're not really close anymore, but it's just something that when I leaf through a pile of pictures, I stop at this picture of my brother, and I'm not really sure why, and I can try to reason through it. I can try to say, it just captures him or his essence or something, but really it's something I can't describe that makes me stop at it. And so that would be the punctum, which is written about in Camera Lucida. And so it's interesting because I get that reaction, but it's really mostly when I'm flipping through a pile of photos. I don't really have the same reactions to pictures in the way that I look at pictures now.
We were talking about it, and we were saying that with Tumblr and Pinterest and Instagram, you scroll so quickly through most of the photographs, or I don't even call them photographs, I call them pictures.
Yeah, we call them pictures.
We call them pictures, which is something I'm going to talk about later, where you kind of just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. We don't even give ourselves a chance to have a kind of punctum reaction to anything. It's so quick, it's so instantaneous, and I feel like a lot of the time it's like, oh, of course they're posting a picture of whatever they're posting. It's their cat, or it's their food, or, oh, that's kind of interesting, and you might stop on it for like a second, and then you might repost it or pin it, but we don't look at photographs, pictures, the same way that Barthes spent so much time obviously looking at these pictures.
And even then, you're looking at it for content and not really for the effect it has on you. You stop at it because there's something that stood out to you, but there's something that stood out to you because it holds some special interest to you. So Bart here is talking about the division between public and private viewings of photographs, and he even says at some point that viewing public photographs is still a private act. But I would say with the rise of social media, and especially since Barthes says that photography is closer to theater than it is to, say, painting. It's more of a performance than anything. And I think right now in our culture we've taken it to such a level of showmanship, of such a level of this theatrical act, that it is no longer necessarily just a private viewing. Because even if there is something in particular we pick out of the picture, there's such a presentation, there's such a purpose of that display, that the private maybe no longer exists in the way it used to, in the way viewing photographs used to make it private.
At the beginning of chapter 40, he actually says photographs, except for the embarrassed ceremony of a few boring evenings, are looked at when one is alone. So he did really think that photographs were meant to be taken when you were alone, and we've completely changed that, especially with Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's how photographs have become a huge performative space for us. We put them on there to be liked. We put them on there to get comments. We almost need the validation of these photographs to validate our lives. And then he said something as well about photography being static. How once you take a photograph, that's it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, that's so not the case anymore. I mean, everyone's got Photoshop on their computer. We all have Instagram where we can, filter things however we want to. So the idea of the photograph being a static, a designation of what was once real, is no longer true. So we have to think about photography and think about these ways of being and how it's changing not only our society, but how we think about ourselves and how we think about what's going on in our lives.
Yeah, and so his insistence on the division between the public and the private is almost no longer necessarily valid, simply because we don't have that separation any longer. That's not realistic for him to insist that there should be a level of intimacy in its own, is not something that's always going to be possible in this generation. And so the viewing of photographs, the process of viewing photographs, because of the level that our society is at right now has become an entirely different act.
And I don't even know if we could say that he was against it. I just think he never even would have brought up the possibility of photographs being something that is so public. I mean, we constantly are showing each other pictures on our phones saying, oh my God, did you see this? Did you see that? So photographs and pictures have become almost more of a public act than a private act. We think of the idea of Facebook stalking. That's something that you do when you're creepy.
Yeah.
If you're looking at pictures alone of somebody, you're not, invested in their lives or something. You're being kind of creepy.
Yeah, he puts it in context of the press and the tabloids, but that's certainly not the case anymore. Our viewing experience is totally transformed since his viewing experience. While there certainly was a public viewing of photographs, it definitely wasn't this invasive into one's personal life, and the intimacy level is no longer there.